In the fast-paced world of business, finding a clear path to profitability can be a challenge. Welcome to 0 to 100 with your host, Jared Guy Randolph, seasoned business and finance expert. Tune in for actionable insights and strategies to accelerate your business success.
Hello, Accelerators. It is time for another 0 to 100 podcast, and today's guest is Ethan, the Money Man Ho. He is the founder and CEO of Kalal Capital Partners. He is a certified financial planner who advocates for financial literacy and also building generational wealth. And we're going to have a very good conversation because we're going to talk about money and mindset. First of all, setting and hitting your financial goals, and then how to enjoy it once you've done so. Strategies around managing risk, how to properly set up an S Corp, and also getting over the hurdles of limiting beliefs around money. So this is going to be a good one. I want all of you to tune in. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jared Guy Randolph. I am the founder of BoxFi. We are the nation's leading payment consultant, providing business growth solutions through payment processing. And I'm very excited to share the network that I've built over my 25-year entrepreneurial journey to help you grow your business and become more profitable. Ladies and gentlemen, let's accelerate together. Ethan Ho, thank you for joining us on 0 to 100.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So as a financial advisor, professional, there's a ton of titles as we've discussed before in this industry, but technically you do it all and you genuinely are an expert. I want to talk to you first before we get into the technical nitty-gritty good stuff, the takeaways for the audience. Tell us how you ended up getting into the business.
Oh my goodness, I feel like I fell into the business. I was in college in New York City going to Fordham University, and I always had this like affinity for money and business, and it always just kind of captured my interest. And I thought going to college was going to prepare me financially to enter the real world and understand how money worked. And as I was graduating, I realized, wow, I am woefully underprepared. I don't understand, I think, the basics of money. College didn't quite do it for me. And so I figured, why not learn about money from the professionals? And so that's what led me to applying and interviewing with various financial firms, which was actually in my junior year of college through internships. I also am from Hawaii. And so I love surfing. And I was like, I need to be back at home for the summer so I can surf, because I wasn't getting the surf I wanted to up in New York, which led me to apply to firms at home and accept an internship at home at a financial planning firm. And I quickly realized when I got that internship, it was more of an administrative role. I realized terrible at admin, would be really good at the advisory role, and saw what the advisors were doing, saw the problems they were solving. And that's really what got me into this. I ended up getting hired at that firm before I even graduated from college.
That's awesome. Tell us one of your first lessons in money that you learned while you were in college that made you go, oh crap, I actually don't know enough about proper financial planning.
Yeah, I feel like none of the practical side of money was taught. We were learning things like, present and future value of your dollars, but how to actually go out and open an account and how to analyze what your investments were doing and really connect. My whole thing has been connecting what you do with your money, how you invest, to the human side of it. I realized that how much money you have, how much money you make has no bearing on how you feel about money. And I thought I was just like, people who were extremely successful really didn't have a good relationship with money. And I thought that was crazy. And I was like, this is something that's really intriguing. I want to dig into it a little bit more.
So you say a lot of people that you had known, and I don't know if it's now or at that time, don't have a good relationship with money. What does that mean?
It didn't seem like their relationship with money was supporting their well-being. It felt like it was causing more stress than peace. It was more headache than calm. Even when you had a lot, even when you had a good job, when you had a good income, and there was always it seemed like this idea of chasing more. And for me, it was always more for why. What was the purpose? What was the intent? Like, what's beneath that?
They say money is energy. It really does have a lot to do with mindset. So what I realized about my relationship with money, or lack thereof, is that I didn't actually have the right connection to it. So I wasn't managing it well. And it really wasn't until the last 5, 6 years of my professional career and in my personal life that I started to have a better relationship with money and managed it better. But that had to do with my education around money. And I know that's something that you guys really focus on, is education around capital management. I'd love for you to talk to the audience a bit more about that.
Yeah. I think making informed and empowered money decisions, at the root of it is having the education, having that foundation of how it works, gives you the confidence to go out and make that final decision, push that buy button, push that sell button, allocate it this way or that way, spend it on something that you may want but you don't need. Understanding the role it plays in your life, understanding how it works for you, really simply as a tool, can allow you to take that step back and I think feel a lot better about the decisions that you're making with your money.
So walk me through. I'm a business owner. I have a relatively successful business, and my business is actually continuing to grow. And I'm getting to the point where I have more expendable income coming in, where I've met all of my fees, all of my expenses, and I've got some things that I can now do and potentially play with my money. How would you advise someone to manage their money when they get to that point in time in their business?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing would be digging into what is the role that money plays in their life? Like, why is it important to them? Is having a lot of money in the bank account or your investment account just a sign of power, and that you get true satisfaction and enjoyment out of having a large number? Is it so you can have freedom and autonomy and security? Those are the big ones that I think, I can kind of boil down to the role that money plays in people's lives, to one of those things: freedom, autonomy, security, and power. And so digging into what is the thing that lights you up? Why is it important to you? And then how does that manifest itself in your life? Is it the freedom to go fishing with your child, or, take them on a wonderful trip? Is it the security to know that you don't have to work if you choose not to? Getting to what is going to be the most meaningful thing for that person, whatever it is for them, because it's very individual, it's very specific. And then once we have an understanding of that, what are the types of accounts? What are the investment strategies that are going to best support that specific goal? There's going to be a difference between an early retirement and maybe a normal retirement. How you allocate that, not only in your asset allocation, but in the type of account you use. Which one are you going to put more of a concentration in, will play into that, I think, ultimately based on the goal.
So I'd actually love to break something down in a unique way that I've actually haven't done on the podcast, and it's popped into my brain. So let's flow with it. Let's take someone who is in their 30s first. Young family, have a business for 5 years. They're doing well. They're starting to get over that hump of growth. And now they've got something in an engine that's actually working. How would you advise that 30-year-old with a young family how to manage their money, what buckets they should consider, and are there like specific percentage allocations? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah. You want to leave your options open. You want to be able to maintain flexibility. And so we would want to look at what options have you created for yourself already. And I find that a lot of new business owners, especially when they're kind of seeing that breakout success that you're describing, haven't taken the time to actually set up the right accounts for their business that will allow them to actually put money into those buckets. So maybe depending on the business, maybe it's something really simple like a SEP IRA. Honestly, not the biggest fan of SEP IRAs. I much rather see someone do like a solo 401k if they're a single member LLC, or taking it, a little bit more advanced and doing a traditional 401k, or setting up a retirement account for the business that you can contribute to as the employee of the business, but also the business can contribute to on your behalf. Making sure that you have accounts that aren't retirement accounts that you can access before retirement age, that gives you the flexibility to invest capital in a new project, a new venture, a new business, or just access your money before you hit that, 59.5-year-old typical. Now you got the green light and you can touch this money without penalty.
Got you. So is there a percentage allocation that you would suggest based on different buckets?
To be honest, I stray away from those like blanket recommendations. There's tons of them that you
Okay.
could find on the internet, like the 50, 30, 20 rule, or, doing a minimum of 10 or 20% to your retirement account. I don't like that, because when I'm working with my clients individually, it is very much based on what your situation entails. Like personally for me, I know I foregoed my retirement contributions heavily, knowing that I want to start my own business. I want to start my own firm. I want access to my capital. And ultimately, that's going to be the biggest ROI that I can get. And I'm willing to risk it there. So most of my money in my early 20s was going into a brokerage account. I was like, I'm going to need access to this, and that goes against a lot of, retirement planning, even financial planning philosophies, but it was unique to my situation. I knew I was entrepreneurial. I knew I was willing to bet on myself. And so those are oftentimes conversations that I have with clients who may share a similar mindset as myself.
So you had mentioned earlier setting up accounts that you can access before retirement age. What type of accounts are out there that someone who is in their 30s could set up where they would be able to access them earlier than the 59 and a half?
Yeah, your classic brokerage account that is a really good place to start. And then your cash accounts, your high yield savings accounts, your money market accounts, of course, you're checking in your savings accounts. But I would say your brokerage account is the big one, and oftentimes is one of the pieces missing in someone's financial plan. When they come to me, they're like, hey, I'm just getting started. I've done maybe I'm a W-2 employee. I've done my 401k. I've done my retirement contributions. Like, what else is there? And that's always a gap. It's like, it's really nice to have, your few $1,000,000 in your retirement account. But if you're 50 years old and you're like done with working, well, it's not that accessible to you. What's going to bridge the gap from 50 to 60? And you want something available there.
So the ultimate flexibility when someone is in their 30s is super important. Let's talk about someone who's starting to do financial planning and they're in their 40s. Kids are a little older, have a family, have a business that they've had for about a decade. Again, they've been working very diligently, and now they're at the point where they're starting to see some extra cash flow, but they haven't really done any financial plannings. What would you advise someone in their 40s do when looking at putting together a financial plan?
Yeah. I'm going to bring it back to the goals again. Are you planning on working forever? Or you just love what you do? Do you want to exit the business and sell it at a certain point in time? Are you unsure? Do you just not know exactly what the end destination is for you? And then it'll still come back to a lot of those traditional core accounts that you have, retirement, Roth and traditional, your brokerage account, your cash accounts. Risk management strategies are definitely something to consider. We want to prevent loss. We want to make sure that we're mitigating some of the biggest risks that we all face. And then tying those accounts to the goals that then again is defined to us through questions and digging into their financial lives.
So we now went 30s, we went 40s, and this is, like I said, very different than what we typically do. Let's talk about somebody in their 50s. Kids are in college, running a business for 15 years. They're now finally getting over that hump. They're seeing that extra cash flow, but they've done zero financial planning. Is there a different approach for someone like that, or is it still a values-driven approach for financial planning?
Still a value-driven approach, but in this example, is it like zero financial planning? I have nothing to my name and all I have is my business? Or is it like they have stuff, they just don't have purpose behind it, they're not sure the role it's playing, or they're just my entire net worth is my business?
Great question. Let's first and foremost focus on their entire net worth being their business.
And is this person looking to exit the business and sell? Does it have enterprise value, or is this like a cash flowing service business?
This is a cash flowing service business.
Oh man, dude, it's time to buckle down hardcore and really focus on habits. Time is your most important asset. You're never going to be able to get those past decades back, but there's no better time than now if you haven't started. And so it's not even focused on what the accounts are. I would say it's a focus on how much can you contribute to your financial future and how long do you have? Are you planning on working until you're 70 or 80 years old? Or are you saying, I want to retire in the next 10 years. I'm done doing this business. Doesn't have any enterprise value. It's cash flowing really good. Like, how much can I be saving and investing? And it's not about getting the highest rates of return, in my opinion. It's about managing behaviors, managing habits, and then creating that system and structure that allows you to put dollars aside for your future so you can still focus on running your business, so you can still focus on being profitable, so you can still focus on being the best family man, husband, wife, spouse, parent, whatever you need to do. You can still prioritize those valuable things in your life, but creating a system that's running on autopilot in the background that is moving you closer to that like ultimate financial dream or goal of yours.
So talk to me, if we're talking about this service-based business that has very good cash flow, how do you set up the right cash flow management tools in your business to make sure that you're allocating money to the right places?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll like start to separate it. The whole financial plan looks at both your personal and your business side of things. But oftentimes I think business owners should run their personal finances like a business, and you should also, vice versa. So we want to be taking chips off the table essentially. And so how much are you paying yourself in wages? How much are you taking as profit distribution coming into your personal life? And then how much do you need that's going to sustain the life that you want to live, right? What are your fixed expenses? What are your variable expenses? How important is things like travel to you? Or are you less about experiences and more about material things and getting that nice car or watch or whatever it is? And allocating dollars so you feel fulfilled, so you know that you're enjoying yourself, because tomorrow is not promised, and that's always this fine balance that you're playing. It's like, how can we be financially responsible for our future selves, but also enjoy today? So on the personal side, it's looking at that, like, what is my bare minimum that I know I need to live the life that I want to live? And then how much is left over or unallocated every month? On the personal side, once we have that number, whatever it is it $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month? Is it much less? From that number, it's okay, now how can we allocate this towards different buckets? Is it your brokerage account? Is it your retirement account? Is it cash savings for immediate needs? And then saying, all right, well, we understand that this is the goal and it's happening in 5 years, and this is another goal and it's happening in 10 years, and this is the immediate goal that's happening now, and I have X dollars coming in, and these are the priorities of my goals. Which is most important? If I only had to accomplish one of these, which one is it? Taking that approach and then saying, all right, I'm going to allocate a heavier percentage to this thing that is the most valuable, the most important to me, and then setting it on autopilot.
How do we as business owners convince ourselves that it is okay to go out and enjoy our lives and the success that we've created?
I think by having a financial plan that has a good statistical probability and reasonable, means of getting you to the goal that you set for yourself. So one of my clients recently called me. He's like, hey, Ethan, like, I want to pull $10,000 out of my investment account. I'm like, cool, no problem. Like, what's it for? He's like, I want to buy a watch. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like, you should, because we've ran your numbers. You are a frugal human being. You have a high probability of hitting your financial goals. Like, you can afford to spend $10,000 on a want that's not a need. And by me, you should do that, And so I think when you have the clarity of where you are going and where you stand financially, then it allows you to take those extra dollars and have fun with them.
I really love that. That's super important for our audience in general, is set your financial goals, hit your financial goals, and then frankly, go out and enjoy yourself. Take a trip, buy yourself something, buy your spouse something, do something for your family that you're truly going to enjoy, because that is one of the reasons we're working. We're working for that freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you know that everything is on autopilot, money coming in, money going out, how much you're saving and investing, and that is going to move you to the goals that you've defined and the timeline that you define, then everything else there is for you to spend freely and without guilt. So many people, and I struggle with myself, like, oh, I want to buy this thing, but like, should I? What am I giving up? Because there's an opportunity cost to every decision that we make, and there's always that financial component to it as well. But when you have a solid plan, when you know that it's aligned with your priorities and your values, then that extra stuff is for you to spend and do it in whatever capacity lights you up.
Oh, that's really, really very sage advice, my friend. So Ethan, talk to us about some of the risk management strategies that you help business owners implement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, managing the downside is like the most important thing. And so we can look at it from a lot of different angles. I would say if you're looking at it from a holistic point of view, ask yourself, what are the biggest threats that you face that could absolutely derail your ability to meet your goals? And so most often it's your ability to earn an income, right? So disability, death, right? Who's relying on you and how do you want to support them? And so that's where, risk management as insurance policies does come into play. If something happens to you today, is your spouse, are your kids, your family member, are they taken care of to the capacity that you would like to take care of them? If your answer is I don't care, I'm dead, that's totally fine. Maybe this isn't a conversation that needs to be had. But for most of us, like, we're inspired to help other people. We actually want to do things for other people more than we want to do things for ourselves. It's sort of like a common trend I see. And so asking yourself, like, are they set up in the way that you would like to set them up if something was to happen to your ability to earn money today? And whether that's life insurance or if that's disability insurance, the whole point of insurance is to pay a little bit of money, hope that you lose that money to avoid a bigger loss.
Very
right?
true. Very true.
And then on the investment side, it comes down to your classic asset allocation and diversification. So often people are striving to get the highest rates of return. And I often am coaching my clients. It's not about getting the highest rates of return. It's getting the best rate of return risk adjusted for the level of risk that you're taking with these dollars versus the return you're getting. Does that balance out? I find that a lot of new or novice investors just look at rate of return. They say, oh, but this investment got a 12% rate of return and this one got an 8% rate of return. 12% must be better. And our thought process is, well, let's say called units of risk. How much units of risk did you take to get that 12% rate of return versus that 8%? And if they're significantly different, our firm will lead towards 8% rate of return with lower levels of risk all day long.
Yeah, and then when you compound that, and let's set the compounding aside because I actually want to dive a little bit more into the risk factors. How do you define units of risk when looking at an investment with one of your clients?
Volatility, right? Yeah. Volatility is probably a big one, whether you're going, standard deviation, something like that. There's a lot of different like technical sides, like measuring risk, and, they can get into like modern portfolio theory and some really heady stuff, but it's are they comfortable with it? Are you comfortable with seeing your portfolio take hundreds of thousands of dollars of swings because you're invested in, maybe a newer asset class like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, or can you just not stomach that because it keeps you up at night and sends you out in like a tailspin, and so, yeah, having, we can look at the number side of it and get really analytical there, but I feel like that often doesn't hit with clients.
Are there any investments that are currently out in the market that everybody knows about that you just think are a no-no, that you shouldn't be putting your money in?
No, I'm not like hey, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. This is an absolute no-go. Risk tolerance, your understanding of it. There's things that we won't invest, our portfolio for our clients yet, but it doesn't mean that I don't think it is something that's worth analyzing or looking at it if that's something that they're interested in.
Understood. So talk to me about once you get that portfolio together that is helping you set those goals, you're hitting those goals, you are investing that in a way in which it aligns with your values. How do you start to build the right tax strategies around that to make sure that you're tax efficient?
Yeah. So tax asset allocation for tax purposes, right? Mm-hmm. There's three basic accounts. One's taxed never, your Roth account. One's taxed always, your traditional account. And one is taxed sometimes, your brokerage account, right? And so making sure that you either have an understanding of how each of those accounts are taxed, the tax that's going to be triggered when you use them the way you use them, or just having a balance. Right? If you're just like, I'm not sure, then let's just create a little bit of a balance here. Have some money in tax-free, have some money in tax-deferred, and have some money in taxable or sometimes taxable.
Yeah. So as a business owner, what are some of the ways in which you can use the tax system to your advantage to reduce your taxes?
Well, the first thing is to become a business owner, right? Like that is the tax code, the tax system is set up for business owners, not set up for W-2 employees. And so that just having a business by itself, the best. I would say that one of the lower hanging fruits that is often overlooked or maybe not executed on the right way for many business owners who are in that breakout success is entity election. Is having the right entity election and then doing the right things to make that entity election actually help you, right? So, one of our clients, I would say one of our clients came in and they had an LLC, right? They did not have the right entity election. They didn't have any entity election for that matter. And so we looked at their situation and we worked with their accountant and we were deciding between an S Corp entity election and a C Corp entity election. And we went back and forth. It was actually a really tough decision because both of the elections and then structuring it correctly would help them tax wise. And for them specifically, we ended up, which is like, it feels like more of an anomaly than normal. We ended up on a C Corp entity election, even though of the double taxation. And that year it saved them like $90,000+ in taxes. For a vast majority of our clients, it is an S Corp entity election that makes a lot of sense. Paying yourself a reasonable payroll and then avoiding self-employment tax on the profits that you take. And the big thing that, that strategy nowadays is coming to light a lot more thanks to social media. It's definitely more talked about, I would say, in the last 5 years than it was previously. But what I find is that it's not executed the right way. People will make the S Corp entity election, but they won't pay themselves payroll, things like that. And it's like, ooh, you're so close. You didn't fill out the right form, or you didn't set up the right system, and now you don't get the benefit of it.
So walk me through what the right setup is for an S Corp if that's what you elect as an entity.
Yeah, so you want to create it. You fill out your tax form. You elect for your LLC to be taxed as an S Corp. And then you need to run payroll. You need to run a W-2 wage for yourself. And this is where it often falls apart. They don't set up the payroll. They don't run it. And so when let's say you have a business that's doing $100,000 in profit, of that profit, maybe you can pay yourself $60,000 or $40,000, a reasonable salary based on your profession. Whatever you can take out of above and beyond that as profit, then avoid self-employment tax, which is about 15.3%. And so if you, let's just 50-50, right? If you say you pay yourself a $50,000 wage through W-2, and then you take $50,000 of profit, you're gonna save 15.3% on that $50,000 of profit that you took. Previously, when you didn't make that S Corp entity election or pay a payroll, you're gonna pay that 15.3% on that entire $100,000 profit that you're taking. It's like for me, I was embarrassed when I figured this out because I was maybe 4 or 5 years into being a financial advisor at the firm I started at. And I'm like, there must be a better way to like reduce my taxes. There has to be a way. I'm going through accounts and I'm asking all these questions. This is before like social media made this strategy, I think, very prevalent. And I figured it out. I talked to enough accountants and I did it, and it saved me, over $10,000. And I was like, I could have been saving $10,000 for the last 3 years easily, right? And then I was like, the financial planner me is like, well, what's $10,000 compounded? Because I could have, put that in my investment account and then roll that out another 40 years or so. And I'm like, well, that was like a $650,000 mistake,
Right.
And it was huge. Or I could have taken a lovely trip and created priceless memories for those last 3 years without taking away any other, by basically paying the government less legally.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, and I was an advisor. I didn't even know that,
First of all, thank you for actually being open about the fact that you were an advisor and you didn't even know that earlier on in your career. How do you and your team, how do you simplify all of this to make it understandable and executable for the clients that you work with?
Yeah, bite-sized chunks, part of the process, we come up with like, hey, this is the action plan. But plans you can have the perfect plan with poor execution and it's absolutely worthless, right? The best plan is a simple one that you can stick to. My New Year's resolution this last year was like, lose the sympathy weight that I gained from my wife's recent pregnancy. I was like, I almost hit 200 pounds. I was like, that I never crossed that mark. So I was like, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start working out more. I'm a big surfer, but I couldn't surf. New father, just like didn't have the time.
Right.
And I gained a lot of weight and I was like, okay, I'm going to start running. I hate running. I'm like, but running is good for you. That should help, right? I ran and my knee swelled up. It was miserable. Like I just couldn't do it, And I was like, this isn't good because this isn't a plan that I can stick to, right? finances is the same way. Like you need to figure out what is the plan that you can stick with. And yeah, that by far better than having the perfect plan. Like a C plan with A execution beats an A plan with C execution all day long.
So I actually really love what you said about taking it in small bites. And I think that's very important for our audience of entrepreneurs and of business owners. But talk to me about some of the consistent limiting beliefs that you see with business owners and why they hit these financial hurdles.
There's so many, and they're so deeply rooted in their past childhood and experiences. And frankly,
Yes.
like I'm constantly learning. I wish I did my degree in psychology or something, but you know, I know that the amount of money that you can make is a big one, right? Like if you sit down, and I did this exercise, 10 years ago or so, and really kind of helped me decide to go into business for myself entirely. But I asked myself, I was like, well, what's the chances you'll make $1 million in the next like 30 days? And I was like, low chance, like probably not going to be able to make $1 million in the next 30 days. And then I reframed the question. I was like, what is the chance of you making $1 million in the next 30 days if your spouse, if your kid, if your mother, father's life depended on it? And I was like, well, with that fire, like I'm going to figure out a way, like I'm going to find a way. And I think that was one of the things that helped me start opening my eyes to the ability to just earn an income that's so much farther beyond what we originally thought. Like I left college being like, if I can make 6 figures a year, $100,000, like I'm good to go. That would be great. Hit that goal right away. And I was like, where'd the money go? Like, is that enough? And I was like, I just wish I created a goal that's like 10x that, and then it reframes how you think about achieving that goal, because it's so much bigger than what you originally thought. You start to problem solve it from a different area or a different way.
You know what? I really like that. And it's all about that turnaround, that problem solving from a different way. And I'd love for you to give us an example of one of the biggest turnarounds that you've had with a client who's walked through your door, that you either help them change their mindset, help them change their financial position. How did you approach it?
Biggest turnaround. God. So this is the thing, like, I really would love for people to glorify how far someone has come and not where they ended up. Because I have clients who walk through our door who are so much more financially successful than like the ones I think about when you ask me that question. The ones I think about when you ask me that question came to us with no financial background, maybe a little bit of debt, a money mindset that was confused and lost and insecure around their situation. And then by going through their goals, by teaching them some basic financial literacy, some basic understanding, by automating their accounts, by checking in with them, by making sure that they know what's happening with their money, that it's doing something very meaningful, and then feeding the emotional side of like, this is good. Like this is important. This is valuable work that you are doing, the decisions that you're making, the sacrifices that you are making to get to this end all be all goal of yours. You're breaking the mold. Like that is such a bigger turnaround than the client who comes in. It's like, yeah, I got $3 million to invest. Can you help me do that? Like, sure, they make more money with us on paper. They may see a bigger dollar value added to their lives. But like true value of like a turnaround in how you feel about money, your approach to it. I think about those people who have come so much farther and may never get to where some of our other clients are, but their journey there is just so much more inspiring to me. And it's like a lot of times it's like what lights me up. And then, full disclosure on the business side, like I have to balance like the heart-centered, like I need to help all these people with like, I need to run a profitable business.
Right. I get that. I just read a book, The Gap in the Gain by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Incredible book, because so many of us as business owners and entrepreneurs, we're focusing on that ideal. We don't pay attention to where we started and where we are. That gain is from where we started to where we are. The gap is from where we are to what our ideal is. So to your point, it's when you have the people come through with no financial plan, might have some debt, they're confused, to go from that point to a year later actually having a plan in place. That's some of the biggest growth that you could see out there, because they actually start somewhere, and then they look back and they're appreciative of what they've created. So I think that's actually a really great story.
Yeah.
You have a lot of clients, you're able to help a lot of clients get there, because a lot of people are very confused when it comes to finances and just genuinely don't know what to do.
Yeah, the peace of mind around like good money habits, a good plan in place is priceless. And that's usually the first win for most of our clients. It's not, oh, we doubled your net worth. You've now achieved this monumental financial goal of yours. It's just peace of mind.
So talk to me about any trends that you're seeing in the market right now that the audience should be aware of where it comes to financial management, entities, taxes, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind first is, because my client, like the people I enjoy working with are, I would say in their 30s to 50s, and maybe even on the younger side of that. Not to say like we have clients that are throughout the spectrum, but there's this trend of just the client burdening more of the financial risk on achieving their goals than the generation before us, mainly through the not having access to pension plans like we used to. When I look at our older clients, it's like, oh, we have this nice pension, our house is paid off, we have some money invested, like we're good to go. And as companies take away pension plans, they realize that they don't want to burden the risk, the retirement risk of all their employees and past employees, and they're putting that risk onto the employee themselves. It just takes a lot more discipline, and it just takes more from the employee to go out and create a retirement plan or a retirement life in the future that works for them. I think that's a big one. I think that we're being stretched, like our generation is being stretched thin in the sense of like, we may be making more money, but prices are not keeping up with the income. Like there's a discrepancy there. It's harder to make it work, whether it's extra student loan debt more than normal, whether it's financially supporting your parents, because I have a good handful of clients that do that while still balancing everything else, sending your kids to school, living a life that's meaningful to you in the present, and then funding your own retirement. Like your income's going up, but everyone is stretched thin.
The cost of living is, God, it's insane. It's, I've watched my partner's grandparents actually pass within the last few years, and they all left their kids money.
Yeah.
And they were well into their 80s and 90s. Most people have literally nothing in the bank. And that's why it is so important, and why we have this conversation, and especially targeting these entrepreneurs and business owners, is to make sure that you are managing your finances. Whomever it is, find someone to help you manage your finances, because you are doing what you're doing because you have a passion for it, but also you're doing it because you are working towards that freedom. So make sure that you're growing your business, you're becoming more profitable, so you can enjoy life after work.
Yep.
It's very important.
And treat it like a business, delegate this stuff off to people who do it every single day. I so often meet with people who are incredibly smart. I would say smarter than me in so many ways, and they are more than capable of doing it themselves. And the question is, should they be doing it themselves? Right. And that's where it's like, well, where you spend your time, the most precious asset you have, are you getting the return that you need to on that? And is it best spent managing your portfolio, creating your financial plan, learning all the tripwires and nuances of money management, personal finance? Like I remember early in my career, such a mistake of mine. I was meeting with this guy. He was a Navy SEAL, like the coolest dude. His kids were cool. His wife was cool. Like this guy was just the man. And I was like, we were putting his financial plan together. And during the recommendation meeting, I made the mistake of saying, you can't do this alone. And bro, you never tell a SEAL you can't. Like you just don't do that. Right. He came back the next meeting. I was like, bro, you said I couldn't do it, and I'm just going to do it to prove you wrong. And I was like, yeah, that was a mistake, because you absolutely can do it. And most people who are successful in their own earning, if you are a good earner, like you're successful, right? You can do this stuff, especially with access to Google and AI. It's not a lack of information. It's really implementation of the information that you get. And then it is understanding and the meaning behind well, you're saving this and you're investing that. Like, what is the meaning behind that? And then taking it a step further, what are the emotions that it invokes in your life that serve you today?
Oh, wow. Ethan, you're blowing my mind here because having that emotional and human connection is so important to the energy of how you manage your own money. And we as entrepreneurs and business owners absolutely know this. So you're definitely speaking our language, and this has been absolutely incredible. Before we do our wrap up and you tell everyone where they can connect with you, we're going to do a little fun rapid fire section. Are you ready to go with me, my friend?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Are you watching an awesome streaming channel, series, or a movie recently that you would suggest our audience watch?
I just started Squid Games 2 with my wife last night.
Is there a book that you would recommend our audience of business owners and entrepreneurs read?
Oh man, I would say scratch the book right now and use ChatGPT, like just to take it a little modern, because there's a ton of books. There's so many good books out there. I'll just be a little different. Start asking and relying and really utilizing this new tool as like an arsenal in your quiver. Like, it is so powerful.
So I'm going to one up you on that. So the books that I read that had the biggest influence on me last year were Profit First,
Great one.
Who Not How, 10X is Easier Than 2X, The E-Myth Revisited, and Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. I have transcribed all of those. It was a whole thing to have to transcribe all of those. And now I'm putting them into a custom chat GPT, and that's going to be my advisory for 2025. So anybody who wants access to that chat GPT, I should have it done by the end of this week. Hit me up and I'll email it over to you so you can play with it. But that's a really good idea. Use chat versus just reading. You're right.
Yeah, it's epic. Because I'm dyslexic, so reading was never my like thing. Audiobooks all the time, but I forget what I was using, but it was basically spark noting these books, right? And it would be like a 15 to 20 minute listen, and I would just like blow through the books, because the books are great, but there's usually only like 2 or 3 like real valuable nuggets, and they're just supported by stories, and that's I love that. Like, it's great, but I'm like, time's of the essence. I need the thing. Like, give me the juice or the sauce. And now I'm like, okay, well, let's just combine these. And you could just go out and, ask ChatGPT to find the best books of 2024 and then summarize them for you and give them and apply it to your life in the way that, makes sense. And the more you talk to it, the more it knows you and the more it understands you and the more you can start getting customized answers to like your situation.
So I know this is supposed to be the rapid fire section, but I got to lean into this a little bit more. I suffer from dyslexia too. Last year, 2024, I read over 60 books. That was more books than I've ever read in my entire life. And the way I did it was I read the book while listening to the Audible, had a pen and a highlighter, marked up the book the entire time. And because the way my brain works and being dyslexic, I can listen to an Audible on 2.5 to 3.5 speed. So a book that would take 8-9 hours to get through, I could get through in 2.5 to like 3 hours. So I was reading like 2 books on a weekly basis, 1.5 books on a weekly basis. That became a game changer for me because I retained more information. I didn't fall asleep while reading and really started to enjoy it. So I love it. In fact, I do a weekly book review on one of the books that I read on LinkedIn every single week.
That's awesome.
But those are like, you brought up Audible. Like it's been such a game changer to read with all those different sensory elements combined. Just it's been a huge game changer. Yeah. So let's get back to the rapid fire section. So if you had the opportunity to have dinner with anyone this evening, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I think I would want to be my future self.
Oh, wow.
I would be like, I want to sit, me, you like, we don't need to do any of this extra stuff. Like, let's sit down and have a real conversation. Like, what makes sense? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What are the things you can fix, you can change? Like, so I can like take that back. It's just hard for me to think of anything that would be more applicable.
Beautiful answer. So for 2025, give us 2 money saving techniques that we can implement into our business to be more profitable.
Into your business.
Yes.
Know your numbers. And so you need to have the team member, accountant, bookkeeper that is helping support the numbers, and then having quarterly meetings with them, understanding your P&Ls, your balance sheet, and like what's driving the needle. So you can Pareto principle it, right? Focus on the 20% of stuff that drives 80% of the results, and like the numbers tell the story. So know your numbers there.
Love it. That's awesome. And our last question, what is the number one hurdle that you have personally had to overcome in your life to build the success that you've built today?
My own mindset. It's like it's always the thoughts, the things that go on through your head, the limiting beliefs you may not even be aware of, what you think is possible. I feel like it all starts and stops with the thoughts that you think. And it's a constant work in progress. Like I'm nowhere near where I want to be success-wise, personal development-wise, business-wise. And I think it's all predicated on my mindset.
Love that. Love that. Positive mindset. That's what it's all about. The gap and the gain. We're going to focus on the gain, and we're going to keep striving forward. So Ethan Ho, please tell everyone where they can connect with you if they'd like to do so.
You can find me on social, Instagram, Ethan the Money Man Ho would be a great place to start. Link in bio will take you to all my main things, my website, our free stuff, schedule meetings, whatever. Or you can find us, Google Claw Capital. Our company's clawcapitalpartners.com. Claw means money in Hawaiian. That's kind of where, and we have our roots in Hawaii. A lot of our values are based in Hawaii. And so that's a little bit of the backstory there. But those would probably be the two best places. So social, Ethan the Money Man Ho, or Google Claw Capital.
Awesome. Ethan, thank you for joining us on 0 to 100.
Thank you so much. It was really fun having a good conversation with you.
Thanks for tuning in to 0 to 100 podcast. We hope you feel inspired and ready to accelerate your business. Remember, your journey to success starts with a single step. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for greatness. For more resources and show notes, visit jaredguyrandolph.com. We'll see you next time.